In general, part of the problem is this idea of the embedded growth obligation, or ego. If you believe that 1945 to 1971, 73 is normal, you built your organization with the idea that it would always grow. And what you did, you might like work people very hard at the beginning and promise them a career and a future as a reward for their hard work. You didn't understand that if growth ever ran out, that would become a Ponzi scheme.
Right.
The FBI arrested him this morning after he told senior employees yesterday that his business was a giant Ponzi scheme.
Wall Street veteran Bernard Madoff has been arrested and charged with running a $50 billion Ponzi scheme. This is one of the biggest fraud cases ever. Madoff runs Bernard Madoff Investment Securities, which he founded back in the 1960s. He also happens to be a former chairman of the NASDAQ stock market. Prosecutors claim that he lost some investors' money on bad trades. Then he tried to hide it all by replacing some of that with cash from new investors who were coming in. Apparently, the scheme unraveled last week when clients asked for about $7 billion in redemptions, and Madoff couldn't cover the requests.
Sir, how do you feel? Are you sorry for what you did?
Mr. Madoff. People are brainwashed when it comes to money. Go to school, get a job, work hard, pay your taxes, save money, get out of debt, buy a house, and invest in the stock market. Everybody who follows that program has been brainwashed.
Rich people don't work for money.
Correct. Money is debt. I use debt as money. And everybody thinks getting in debt is bad. Well, who told you that? I think the stock market is for losers. Why would you put money in the stock market when it's manipulated? That's what I think about. So I'm always watching the manipulation going on behind the scenes.
Everything in here was made up now.
Everything.
Everything.
Nothing. Not a single line.
No.
All fake.
All fake. A novel.
A novel. Your statement's a novel.
Yes. Unfortunately. December 11th, the same day he turned himself in, we had sent in a check to buy a condo in an active retirement community, and then the news broke. Now we're worrying about having to pay the bills from never thinking twice about if we wanted something, we could get it.
We no longer spend any discretionary expenses, that's gone. But the bills keep coming in. And now we have to sell our apartment in this market.
I have no income coming in. I've had to move in with a parent.
Courthouse. He is 70 years old. He will plead guilty to 11 criminal counts and almost certainly spend the rest of his life in prison. And there goes Bernie Madoff.
The founder of Robinhood, the stock trading app for common people, says don't blame him for not having access to the market. Blame the clearinghouse. Here's a little quick background primer for you. Last week, GameStop, a chain retailer of video games that's likely to go out of business soon, saw their stock skyrocket 1,500%. Why? It wasn't because they announced some new product or strategy to keep their company afloat. No, it was because of an online mob looking to stick it to big Wall Street hedge funds.
I mean, the effects of that decision they made to stop trading, and specifically, they didn't stop people from selling. They only stopped people from buying. So they shut down one side of the trade. And the effect of that was we had these hedge funds from Wall Street. They were on the ropes, right? I mean, let's discuss who these guys are. These are the apex predators of Wall Street. They are in the business of shorting companies to destroy them. I mean, that is their business model. And they are not academic traders, okay, who are just speculating on outcome. They engineer the outcome, right?
The way they have absolutely cheated, stolen, robbed everyday people so all our hedge fund billionaire friends can get out and not get killed is one of the most remarkable, illegal, shocking robberies in the history, in plain sight. Robinhood, crooks, jail. The Citadel, Ken Griffin, jail. Steve Cohen, the Mets owner, jail.
I literally launched in September of '87. And I was very confident as to how this portfolio would behave in a bull market and very uncertain as to how it would behave in a bear market. Like the mathematics on the way down are just much more nebulous than on the way up. And so I was short more stock than my back of the envelope math would tell me to be short. And what happened a month later was the crash of '87. And so at that moment, I became boy genius. Now I knew I was boy lucky because I was short the market intentionally, but outside investors go, look, this person's a genius. He made money in the crash. So that was a very defining moment in my career, was the crash of '87, and being net short gave me a track record early on that was attractive to investors.
My name is Nelson Baghetti, and I'm the president of Stamford. You graduates have a lot of responsibility, finishing the important work of movements such as Pound, Met 00, and Title X.
So I think I know, but why did they call you Big Head?
Oh yeah, just, boys being boys. They're making fun of my big old dome.
It's not because your last name is Baghetti?
Jin Yang won the house for me in a game of chance. He told me to pick a number between 1 and 10. I picked 7, but it was 3. You live, you learn.
President Baghetti?
Whoa, how did you know my name?
I go to Stanford.
Oh, no way, I work at Stanford. I'm the president.
Yeah, I know.
And so, you have this very strange phenomenon in Silicon Valley where a number of the more successful people seem to be suffering from a mild form of Asperger's. And I think we always need to flip this around into an indictment of our broader society. And we need to ask the question, what is it about our society where those of us who do not suffer from Asperger's are talked out of our interesting, creative, innovative ideas before they're even fully formed, where we sort of pick up on all these cues from the people around us and notice, oh, that's a little too weird, that's too strange. I better just stick with that Supreme Court clerkship.
Not too bright, folks. Not too fucking bright. But if you talk to one of them about this, if you isolate one of them, you sit them down rationally, and you talk to them about the low IQs and the dumb behavior and the bad decisions, right away they start talking about education. That's the big answer to everything. Education. They say we need more money for education. We need more books, more teachers, more classrooms, more schools. We need more testing for the kids. And you say to them, well, we've tried all of that, and the kids still can't pass the test. They say, don't you worry about that. We're going to lower the passing grades. And that's what they do in a lot of these schools now. They lower the passing grades so more kids can pass. More kids pass, the school looks good, everybody's happy, the IQ of the country slips another 2 or 3 points, and pretty soon all you'll need to get into college is a fucking pencil. Got a pencil? Get the fuck in there, it's physics.
How can you tell you're not in 1971 through 73? It's very tough for most of us because mostly what happened was that semiconductors and communication kept going, and the rest of society didn't move to the Jetsons, right?
Ever since people started recording information, there's been a need to duplicate it.
Very nice work, Brother Dominic. Thank you. Very nice. Now, I would like 500 more sets.
Brother Dominic, how are you?
Could you do a big job for me?
The Xerox 9200 duplicating system, unlike anything we've ever made, feeds and cycles originals, has a computerized programmer that controls the entire system, can duplicate, reduce, and assemble a virtually limitless number of complete sets, and does it all at an incredible 2 pages per second.
Here are your sets, Father. The 500 sets you asked for. It's a miracle.
Right now, if you ask who are the customers of education, the customers of education are the society at large, employers that hire people, right, things like that. But ultimately, I think the customers are the parents, not even the students, but the parents. And the problem that we have in this country is that the customers went away. The customers stopped paying attention to their schools for the most part.
And gave their kids to the...
Well, what happened was that mothers started working, and they didn't have time to spend at PTA meetings and watching their kids' school. Schools became much more institutionalized, and parents spent less and less and less time involved in their kids' education.
Tumble out of bed and I stumble to the kitchen, pour myself a cup of ambition and yawn and stretch and try to come to life. Jump in the shower and the blood starts pumping. Out on the streets, the traffic starts jumping with folks like me on the job from 9 to 5. Working 9 to 5. What a way to make a living. Barely getting by. It's all taking and no giving. They just use your mind and they never give you credit. It's enough to drive you crazy if you let it. 9 to 5.
Well, my mom and dad divorced. I was at a young age, but I got to see my dad all the time. And my mom, she's still alive. My dad's still alive. And my brothers.
How old are you?
I'm 28.
28. Growing up as a young man in Appalachia, are there many other options other than coal mining?
Well, I've done a number of things. I've been a police officer, armed security guard at the hospital over here at Welch, and I also helped take care of a mentally disabled child, and then I come into the mines.
Okay. So you've done quite a few things.
Yes, sir.
And do you enjoy mining?
I love it.
You love it. What are your favorite things about it?
Just being with the brothers on the ground. It's a brotherhood. It's a family.
You remain positive even though you're going to the bathroom outside.
Yeah, it's like camping.
But you keep telling yourself that.
You have to. You have to. Because you have to get through it. And you have to remind yourself that you are a person. You are not an object. You are not a thing. And it doesn't matter who threw you away. And it doesn't matter how you were treated in the past. You are worthy of getting through this. And so you have to be positive and you have to love yourself because no one's coming to save you. You got to do this.
Now I'm going to sign this, and it's a great honor. $6.2 trillion. I've never signed anything with a T on it. I don't know if I can handle this one, Mitch. We can't chicken out at this point, can we? I don't think so, huh? All right, thank you all.
33 million Americans have filed for unemployment insurance. The chair of the Federal Reserve Bank has told us to think big because interest rates are so low. The low interest rate and the prospect of access to credit has bolstered the stock market.
Listen, okay? Last year, Apple lost $1 billion. I don't even know how that's possible. You were less than 90 days from being insolvent. I had 3 different accountants try to explain it to me. The whole place has to be streamlined.
Start with 2 of the accountants.
I started with the Apple...
The top guys...
There are no top guys. All right? On the Apple II team, there are no top guys. They're B players. And B players discourage the A players.
They're not B players, and I'm a better judge of that.
Less than 90 days from insolvency. In part because somebody thought the Newton wasn't a box of garbage.
Joe, the least you can do if you're going to downsize these people...
They're going to live in the biggest houses of anyone on the unemployment
is to
line.
acknowledge them. This whole place was built by the Apple II. You were built by the Apple II.
As a matter of fact, I was destroyed by the Apple II and its open system so that hackers and hobbyists could build ham radios or something. And then it nearly destroyed Apple when you spent all your money on it and developed a grand total of no new products.
And what happens when a customer goes away and a monopoly gets control, which is what's happened in our country, is that the service level almost always goes down. I remember seeing a bumper sticker when the telephone company was all one, AT&T, the Bell system. I remember seeing a bumper sticker with the Bell logo on it, and it said, "We don't care. We don't have to." You know? And that's what a monopoly is. Sure. That's what IBM was in their day, and that's certainly what the public school system is. They don't have to care.
So we can get you an operating system.
What kind of operating system?
It's called DOS.
This is amazing. But not just amazing, it's historic. It should be taught in all the history books. I mean, hung and framed in the National Gallery or something. I mean, Bill Gates is the richest guy in the world because of what started in this room. You want to know what else? wasn't exactly smoke and mirrors, but we didn't have anything. I mean, not a damn thing. Here we were, this 2-bit little outfit telling IBM we had the answer to their problems. The DOS, the disk operating system, to make all those zillion IBM computers compute. I mean, we didn't even remotely own anything like what Bill was selling them. Nada. Zip.
This is who we wanted to steal from, Xerox. They were secretly developing all this amazing stuff like the mouse and the graphics on the screen instead of just a bunch of numbers. But when those California engineers had to go to New York and present all this neat stuff to the Xerox brass, those executives didn't begin to understand what they were looking at. Never mind a mouse, it was like someone dumped a dead rat on the boardroom table.
You want Xerox to consider something called a mouse?
You know, I felt like one of the Mongol hordes coming to loot and plunder a bunch of defenseless villagers.
No. This is insane. We'll just be handing him everything. I mean, we created the mouse and all the rest of it, and now these idiots in New York want to show it all to Steve Jobs. I won't do it.
Hi, I'm Steve Jobs.
Something else.
So they were very skillful.
Yeah. But they did show us.
Yeah.
So, and it's good that they showed us because the technology crashed and burned at Xerox. And they used to call it, what's that?
No, I was just...
Why?
Yeah, why?
Oh, I actually thought a lot about that. And I learned more about that with John Scully later on. And I think I understand it now pretty well. What happens is, like with John Scully, John came from PepsiCo. And they at most would change their product, once every 10 years. I mean, to them, a new product was like a new size bottle, right? So if you were a product person, you couldn't change the course of that company very much. So who influenced the success of PepsiCo? The sales and marketing people. Therefore, they were the ones that got promoted, and therefore they were the ones that ran the company.
I'll take a Coke.
Is Pepsi okay?
Is Pepsi okay? Is Pepsi okay? Ow! Our puppy's okay. Is a shooting star okay? Is the laughter of a small child okay? Are you with me? You seem confused. Let's role play. Now.
Okay, I'm Steve. I'm an actor.
No. Just order something.
I'll have...
You will have a nice cold glass of the best thing you ever tasted. Okay?
Okay.
Start over. It has to be intuitive. Precognitive. I mean, I wanted to know what you want to do before you even know you want to do it.
Wait, are we still talking about the command prompts?
Bill, we're talking about everything. The whole thing. Lisa. Guys, it's the future. I'm telling you right now. I mean, Lisa's going to do for the next 10 years what the Apple II did for the last 3. I can tell you that right now.
Well, for PepsiCo, that might have been okay. But it turns out the same thing can happen in technology companies that get monopolies, like, IBM and Xerox. If you were a product person at IBM or Xerox, so you make a better copy or a better computer. So what? When you have a monopoly market share, the company's not any more successful. So the people that can make the company more successful are sales and marketing people, and they end up running the companies. And the product people get driven out of the decision-making forums. And the companies forget what it means to make great products. Sort of the product sensibility and the product genius that brought them to that monopolistic position gets rotted out by people running these companies who have no conception of a good product versus a bad product. They have no conception of the craftsmanship that's required to take a good idea and turn it into a good product. And they really have no feeling in their hearts, usually, about wanting to really help the customers. So that's what happened at Xerox. The people at Xerox PARC used to call the people that ran Xerox toner heads. And these toner heads would come out to Xerox PARC and they just had no clue about what they were seeing.
And for our audience, toner is what?
Oh, toner is what you put into a copier. Yeah, the toner that you add to an industrial copier.
The black stuff.
The black stuff, yeah. So basically they were copier heads that just had no clue about a computer or what it could do. And so they just grabbed defeat from the greatest victory in the computer industry. Xerox could have owned the entire computer industry today. Could have been, a company 10 times its size. Could have been IBM. Could have been the IBM of the 90s. Could have been the Microsoft of the 90s. So, but anyway, that's all ancient history. It doesn't really matter anymore.
Sure.
What are your thoughts on the innovations in education today? Thank you.
Just thoughts on education. I think there's maybe there are definitely some good schools out there, but I think some of the mistakes, at least in my opinion, that I see being made in education is that the teachers do not explain why kids are being taught a subject. Just sort of get dumped into math and like, well, why are you learning math? What's the point of this? This seems like some, for some people, like maybe it's, I don't know why I'm being asked to do these strange problems.
So what is the Common Core? It's a very simple thing. It's a written explanation of what knowledge kids should achieve at various milestones in their educational career. So it's writing down in 6th grade which math things should you know, in 9th grade which math things should you know, in 12th grade which math things should you know. And you might be surprised to learn how poor those, I'll call those standards, but to be clear, it's not curriculum, it's not a textbook, it's not a way of teaching, it's just writing down, should you know this part of algebra, should you know trigonometric functions, should you know, be able to recognize a graph of this type.
Are you just trying to make me feel stupid, Common Core math?
I've heard of Common Core, but I've never actually seen it.
Honestly, I have no idea what Common Core math is, and I have a 2nd grader.
I had my math moment. It is gone.
The idea that she's learning math in a totally different way is intimidating to me as a parent, because I feel like I'm not going to be that helpful to her.
I'm just going to be like, here's a calculator, figure it out. It's going to take forever. Most of this is just guesswork.
Base 10 model of the number, no idea.
I don't know some of these terms.
Expanded form versus standard form. I didn't realize numbers had those.
Do actual 3rd graders do this and get graded on this?
I don't know.
Could someone please explain me what a base 10 model of the number is?
Fill in the number line. What is a number line?
I can't tell you what the heck is going on when I see just 10, 100, and 1,000, and I'm supposed to tell you what is less or more.
And go up and down, side to side, filling it in, following directions.
So what I've heard about Common Core is that adults can't do it. All right, question. Juanita wants to give bags of stickers to her friends.
She wants to give the same number of stickers to each friend.
She's not sure if she needs 4 bags or 6 bags of stickers.
How many stickers could she buy so there are no stickers left over?
It's missing information.
What information are you missing? I guess the first question I would ask is, how many friends does she have?
How many friends does she have?
The number of stickers per bag would be really helpful.
Good God, this is an awful question.
You can't really answer it unless you assume that they're X number of friends.
This is a 4th grade level question. Do you think this is appropriate for a 4th grader?
If I were a 4th grader, unless somebody told me how to answer that, I would not get that.
Just the way I read it and interpreted it was just...
Do you feel, the AFT last week announced that they didn't want to take any more Gates money when it came to the Common Core, because the assumption is there that they're somehow being bought by Gates and they're not voicing their own honest opinions about the core, that there's something compromising about it. So I wondered, are you concerned at all that you're becoming a liability here, or how do you answer those concerns? People think that you're the unelected school superintendent of the country.
Well, certainly you combined sort of way too many things there.
That's weird.
They always travel in groups of 5. These programmers, there's always a tall, skinny white guy, short, skinny Asian guy, fat guy with a ponytail, some guy with crazy facial hair, and then an East Indian guy. It's like they trade guys until they all have the right group.
You clearly have a great understanding of humanity.
The idea behind algorithm-style coding interview questions is they are very hard on purpose, and they help filter down on the number of candidates that you actually have to the most dedicated ones that are the cream of the crop. And this works great for FANG companies, which are super highly sought after, and they have hundreds of candidates that are all super qualified, and they can afford to be picky. The problem is when we have the rest of the tech industry copying FANG and Google, and we have freaking Home Depot asking me to invert a binary tree to figure out if I'm qualified or not to change the background color of their landing page from hashtag FFF to hashtag FAFAFA. My main point is that what you actually do on the job as a software engineer is very different than what they're actually asking you in algorithm style interview questions. So much so that you actually need to study for weeks, if not months, before you even do an interview. And then when you actually go into the interview, you can just as easily be asked a question that you didn't study for, or God forbid, you forgot that one algorithm under the pressure of the moment that you needed to answer for this particular problem, and you're just screwed. GG, you're not getting the job, it's over. And this is extremely ridiculous when it's happening for interviews of intermediate or senior level engineers. Like, imagine being a software engineer for several years, you're successful, you're good at your job, and then you go to switch jobs and you actually need to study for several weeks grinding leak code questions because you're not going to be quizzed on the knowledge you accumulated the last 3 years you've been working.
Whoa! I just got invited to give the commencement address at Harvard this year.
That's amazing.
I remember you did it 10 years ago when Priscilla graduated. I was there.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. 30 years later than I was supposed to, but I enjoyed it.
They know we didn't actually graduate, right?
Oh, that is the best part. They actually give you a degree.
You don't even have to go to class?
No, you just put that degree on your resume and it looks great.
When you shake his hand, the poison will be absorbed into his skin where it metabolizes for a 12-hour period. Nobody will have any idea you two were involved.
No one will know?
The United States must maintain total and complete deniability.
This is what I pictured.
What did you picture?
I walk in there like a fucking gangster and blow his little fucking ass away on television. This is a major television event. You don't want to blow it with an off-screen death. Look, in porno, we call this the money shot. You don't have a bunch of dudes going at it. And then right before they finish, you cut to black and say, oh, don't worry, 12 hours later, they came all over each other. No! You want them all over close-up, all over his face. The end. Bam!
Stunning fallout after the Hollywood hacking at Sony. Now we learn private emails about big stars, including Angelina Jolie, have been made public. The embarrassing leaks unprecedented. And the big question now, how much could this cost a movie giant?
The FBI is still investigating who's behind this cyber war and whether it could be North Korea's retaliation for the upcoming Sony movie, The Interview.
Hello, North Korea!
And its plot to assassinate Kim Jong-un.
Want to go kill Kim Jong-un?
Totally.
How far is too far in a movie like this?
We definitely try to be sensitive, but at the same time, I think some of the most successful attempts to kind of shed light on the ridiculous atrocities in the world have been through comedy.
Hackers calling themselves the Guardians of Peace also reportedly accessing phone numbers, email addresses for directors and actors, even social security numbers, and aliases celebrities have used to protect their privacy. So far, Sony losing millions.
They called me incompetent. That's exactly what they said about me when I scored this interview. No way. Said Dave Skylark is stupid and incompetent. You're handsome, competent, suave. How dare they? I pretend like their insults don't get to me. But they do. You know what's more destructive than a nuclear bomb? Words.
The hackers who stole millions of documents from Sony Pictures are getting personal. They are leaking the private health information of dozens of Sony employees and their families. Meanwhile, the studio's co-chairman and a powerful Hollywood producer are apologizing for their stolen emails. The two used racial jokes to mock President Obama. Elaine Keano is here with how the fallout from the cyber attack is far from over.
The president acknowledging North Korea is behind it. All over the country, those billboards now covered up, posters taken down, the movie, The Interview, that poked fun at the North Korean dictator pulled. Tonight here, the new threat, what they want now.
They made a mistake. I wish they'd spoken to me first. Imagine what they start doing when they see a documentary that they don't like, or news reports that they don't like.
Tonight, the North Korean hackers going even further, what they're demanding now.
Today, the U.S. government pointed the finger of blame directly at North Korea for the devastating cyber attack against Sony Pictures.
They caused a lot of damage, and we will respond. We will respond proportionally, and we'll respond in a place and time and manner that we choose.
The extraordinary response coming after FBI investigators pieced together a trail of clues, including IP addresses apparently linked to Pyongyang.
That's right. Cool. How you guys handled everything? It's been a lot of backlash, or not even backlash, just a lot of shit.
It's been a lot of hullabaloo, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, it's weird because the movie itself is so silly and just like, we just made it to try to be funny more than anything and entertaining, and we weren't like, let's make a really fucking controversial movie that really pisses people off. Like, that was not by any means our intention. So it's a little weird, but what's not, I know. I mean, if they honestly don't definitively know if North Korea did the hacks, but one way or another, I agree that it's super fucked up that people seem very eager to make money off of stolen information, essentially, and at the same time are doing exactly what these criminals want them to be fucking doing. Like, if the criminals could do that themselves, they would, but they can't, so instead the Wall Street Journal does it for them, you know?
Probably the biggest drama to come out of these leaked Sony emails was regarding the planned upcoming Steve Jobs biopic. Emails exchanged between Sony Pictures co-chairman Amy Pascal and Academy Award-winning producer Scott Rudin show a vicious fight revolving around Jobs, Angelina Jolie, Cleopatra, and David Fincher that ultimately resulted in Jobs being taken from Sony over to Universal.
What I can tell you is that this email exchange was better than anything that happened in the final season of Dexter. There was so much drama and I mean, I read through this thing just like, wow, I couldn't believe it. I felt a little dirty reading it because they were private emails that should have never gotten out.
Four of Silicon Valley's biggest tech firms have reached a new settlement on a sprawling antitrust lawsuit. The lawsuit, brought by tech workers, alleged the companies conspired to avoid poaching one another's employees. According to a Tuesday court filing, Google, Apple, Intel, and Adobe have all agreed to pay an undisclosed amount in damages to settle the 2011 lawsuit. The New York Times says the four tech giants are offering a joint payment of $415 million. Companies could be required to pay a sum somewhere in the billions. The lawsuit involves 64,000 current and former tech workers who allege the company set up no-poach rules in order to suppress wages. Emails revealed during court proceedings in 2012 showed Steve Jobs personally asked Google's Eric Schmidt not to hire an Apple engineer.
They honestly don't definitively know if North Korea did the hacks, but one way or another, I agree that it's super fucked up that people seem very eager to make money off of stolen information, essentially, and at the same time are doing exactly what these criminals want them to be fucking doing. Like, if the criminals could do that themselves, they would, but they can't, so instead the Wall Street Journal does it for them, you know?
A lot of Silicon Valley tech companies, they're using a tactic of hire and fire, slash and burn, rinse and repeat, churning through thousands of slaves. So the big innovation in tech over the past decade has not been React.js, some JavaScript framework or API. It's been the reintroduction of modernized slavery. And you know, this is a lose-lose situation because American jobs are being displaced. High-skilled workers from overseas are not able to get in on the visas and get the respect that they deserve. And then anybody who's able to get in on an H-1B, skilled or not, is treated like garbage. See, there's no talent shortage. Tech companies have just invented some BS interview game as a way to filter out American candidates and give priority to cheap labor from overseas that they can have absolute control over.
But you know, the why of things is extremely important because you know our brain has evolved to not
to discard information that it thinks has no relevance. So then, if on the one hand you're being asked to memorize or learn, say, formulas, but you do not know why this is the case, then you have this cognitive dissonance of, it seems irrelevant, but I'm being told to remember it, so I'll be punished. so I better remember it. But so the why of things is very important. And
when you grow up, you tend to get told that the world is the way it is, and your life is just to live your life inside the world, try not to bash into the walls too much, try to have a nice family life, have fun, save a little money. But life, that's a very limited life. Life can be much broader once you discover one simple fact, and that is everything around you that you call life was made up by people that were no smarter than you. And you can change it. You can influence it. You can build your own things that other people can use. And the minute that you understand that you can poke life and actually something will, if you push in, something will pop out the other side, that you can change it, you can mold it. That's maybe the most important thing.
And then like if I think of some of the ways in which, how does a smart engineer make dumb mistakes, including, is optimize something that shouldn't exist. Don't optimize something that shouldn't exist. But people are trained to do this in college. You can't say no to the professor. The professor's going to give you the exam, and you've got to answer all the questions, or they will get angry. And give you a bad grade. So then you always optimize you always answer the question. A lot of the times you should say this is the wrong question.
Right.
In fact, the question is definitely wrong to some degree, just how wrong? Well, first of all, you don't need college to learn stuff, okay? Everything is available basically for free. You can learn anything you want for free. It is not a question of learning.
But there's a reason. There's a reason. There's a reason for this. There's a reason education sucks, and it's the same reason that it will never, ever, ever be fixed. It's never going to get any better. Don't look for it. Be happy with what you got. Because the owners of this country don't want that. I'm talking about the real owners now. The big, the wealthy, the real owners, the big wealthy business interests that control things and make all the important decisions. Forget the politicians. They're irrelevant. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. They own you.
There's a deep connection between money as an instrument of change and what you're doing now at Social Capital.
Look, here's the thing. There's about 150 people that run the world. Anybody who wants to go into politics, they're all fucking puppets, okay? There are 150, and they're all men, that run the world, period, full stop. They control most of the important assets. They control the money flows. And these are not the tech entrepreneurs. Now, they are going to get rolled over the next 5 to 10 years by the people that are really underneath pulling the strings. And when you get behind the curtain and see how that world works, what you realize is it is unfairly set up for them and their progeny.
Get used to it because we're going to be seeing it 24/7. Son of a bitch. Goddamn Kennedys. I'm looking at the goddamn Kennedys.
Jimmy, the kids' language.
Oh, what difference does it make? I mean, they got to learn sooner or later. We're going to war with these people.
Get to the mystery now surrounding tech tycoon Jack Ma. The billionaire founder of China's giant online retailer Alibaba has not been seen in public since October when he blasted Chinese regulators in a speech that drew fire from China's leaders and
He's one of the world's wealthiest tech entrepreneurs, worth an estimated $50 billion.
No matter we are from a country big, small, rich, or poor, everybody should have the equal chance to compete.
But for the past 2 months, Jack Ma, the flamboyant founder of e-commerce giant Alibaba, the closest thing in China to Amazon, hasn't been seen in public. The famously outspoken 56-year-old making headlines in October after delivering a speech critical of the Chinese government, accusing financial regulators of suffocating innovation and likening its banks to behaving like pawn shops. The 20-minute speech drawing the ire of the Chinese government and triggering an antitrust investigation into his company. 1 week later, the billionaire and his team were summoned to Beijing for a dressing down. He hasn't been seen publicly since, even
United Nations Agenda 21 is about inventory and control, and it's inventorying and controlling everything. So all aspects of your life, education, it's in your land use, it's in law enforcement. Well, you know, the problem, of course, is that Agenda 21 is not named Agenda 21. When you're looking at it locally, it's sustainable development, and so they can easily say that they don't know anything about it because they don't see it called Agenda 21. It's not a conspiracy theory. It is a conspiracy fact.
That caused this problem where you have this strange graph between median male income and GDP, where men can no longer expect that their career trajectories will grow. So we start this problem of the egos. Every organization and institution has effectively an embedded growth obligation. How fast does it have to grow in order for it to keep from becoming sociopathic? Because when it becomes a Ponzi scheme, it will have to be headed by somebody who is willing to lie to new entrants about the nature of that scheme. Right now, we've just elected, for example, a 78-year-old president, 8 years older than the oldest president ever elected. Whatever this leadership class in the 1940s, it's an illusion. They are not a leadership class. They are peacetime kleptocrats. And the reason that peacetime kleptocracy is so important is because we are a high-growth country that hit our stall speed. And like any plane, you can't keep a fixed-wing aircraft in the sky if it's not traveling at an appreciable speed relative to the air mass. So that's what is the central idea of how we started falling apart. We were a rich family, if you will, with a family business that had built up a tremendous amount of wealth, and the family business, the engine, was sputtering. So what do most rich families do when you have such a situation? The first thing they do is they try to fix the business. They try to plow it back in. And I believe that probably Ronald Reagan and his cohort had this idea that they were going to stimulate the country back into productivity.
There was once upon a time that to be a Republican in this area of the country felt a little bit like being Gary Cooper in High Noon, outnumbered in a big way. But I remember the story of a fellow who was running for office as a Republican, and he was in a rural area and it wasn't known to be Republican, and he stopped by a farm to do some campaigning. And when the farmer heard he was a Republican, his jaw dropped and he said, "Wait right here till I go get Ma. She's never seen a Republican before." So he got her, and the candidate looked around for a podium from which to give his speech, and the only thing he could find was a pile of that stuff that Bess Truman took 35 years trying to get Harry to call fertilizer. So he got up on the mound, and when they came back, he gave his speech. And at the end of it, the farmer said, "That's the first time I ever heard a Republican speech." And the candidate said, "That's the first time I've ever given a Republican speech from a Democratic platform."
The U.S. ping pong team met with President Nixon today at an Oval
And
Office
wouldn't you know
ceremony.
A few months later, they invited me and the ping pong team to visit the White House. So I went again, and I met the President of the United States again. Only this time they didn't get us rooms in a real fancy hotel.
So are you enjoying yourself in our nation's capital, young man? Yes, sir. Well, where are you staying? It's called the Hotel Ebot. Oh, no. I know of a much nicer hotel. It's brand new, very modern. I'll have my people take care of it for you.
Security, Frank Wells. Yeah, sir. You might want to send a maintenance man over to that office across the way. The lights are off and they must be looking for a fuse box or something, because them flashlights, they're keeping me awake.
Gone through Watergate, we've gone through the Church and Pike Committee hearings.
We have a particular obligation to examine the NSA in light of its tremendous potential for abuse. It has the capacity to monitor the private conversations of American citizens without the use of a bug or attack. The interception of international communication signals sent through the air is the job of NSA, and thanks to modern technological developments, it does its job very well. The danger lies in the ability of the NSA to turn its awesome technology against domestic communication.
Osama bin Laden was one of the recipients of funding from this alternate CIA that was subverting the oversight control of the successor to the Church Commission, and that is the Senate Intelligence Committee. Well, I have to say, it was rogue elements of the U.S. government controlled by John Brennan, Richard Clark, Vice President Biden, quite a few people. There's a long list of people. They started with good intentions. The Safari Club was begun to fight the expansion of the USSR, but it turned into a very distorted operation over the years. And Osama bin Laden was the figurehead manifestation of this alternate CIA. And so they had to protect him in their bad judgment. And you see, one lie leads to another. Our parents always taught us this. And so...
Pee yet? Gotta flush them drugs out of your system. Look awful suspicious if you're really gonna shoot yourself pumped full of the same shit the agency uses.
I'm not gonna shoot myself.
Sure you will.
That's my gun.
Yeah. You wrote a real touching suicide note, too. All over raw with guilt about your mistakes. Quit your struggle. This thing works. It's not the first time we've used it.
Gone through, inflation and whip inflation now.
But Enron was once the 7th largest corporation in America. They revolutionized trading and the energy market. They were far smarter than their competitors, and their business was intricate and too complex for the average person to understand. Except, in reality, it was all a big scam filled with lies, fraud, and political manipulation. Enron was the biggest scam in US history. The fallout from the scam was monumental. Billions of dollars stolen, thousands of lost jobs, dozens of convictions, one suicide, and the unveiling of a very public display of corporate greed that shined directly into the heart of corporate America.
I'm a CDO manager.
A CDO manager?
Yeah, at Harding Advisors.
I didn't realize that there was anything to manage with CDOs.
Oh. We select the securities that go into the CDO portfolio and monitor the assets. I do most of Merrill Lynch CDOs.
Do you represent the investors or Merrill Lynch?
The investors.
You do?
Yeah.
But Merrill Lynch isn't going to send you any customers unless you put Merrill Lynch's bonds in your CDO.
Good question. Let's just say Merrill and I have a good relationship.
Are you at all concerned about the rising default rates?
I assume no risk for these products myself, Mark.
So let me get this straight. The bank calls you up. They give you the bonds they want to sell. They give you clients. They give you money to run your business. Give you fat fees for doing so. But you represent the investors? Is that right?
Yeah. But we're not in the Merrill Lynch building.
Okay. Where are you?
We're in New Jersey.
You're 20 minutes away.
Well, 5 Visa helicopter.
Say that again. CDO A has parts of CDO B, and CDO B has parts of CDO A, but then they both get put inside CDO C.
Yeah, that one's called CDO squared. CDO of a CDO. All right? And then there's CDOs made up of the opposite side of the bet you made with your swaps. We call them synthetic CDOs.
What did you Synthetic CDOs.
Synthetic CDOs.
That is fucking crazy.
It's not. It's awesome.
Paulson and Bernanke had not consulted with other governments and didn't understand the consequences of foreign bankruptcy laws.
Lehman Brothers London continued to empty their
Under
desks.
British law, Lehman's London office had to be closed immediately.
All transactions came to a halt, and there are thousands and thousands and thousands of transactions.
The hedge funds who had had assets with Lehman in London discovered overnight, to their complete horror, that they couldn't get those assets back.
One of the points of the hub failed.
And that had huge knock-on effects around the system.
The oldest money market fund in the nation wrote off roughly $750 million in bad debt issued by the now bankrupt Lehman Brothers.
Kramer, and we're looking at AIG, which it seems like every day we have a new company that is at the top of our list to watch.
There are only two companies that can't fail, AIG and Citigroup.
The decision to rescue AIG was correct, and I strongly supported it. An AIG failure would have been devastating to the financial system and to the economy. Today's hearing relates to payments to AIG's credit default swap counterparties.
Last night on Air Force One coming back from Peru, I talked at length to the Secretary about his recommendation on the decisions made to safeguard Citicorp. We have made these kind of decisions in the past, made one last night, and if need be, we're going to make these kind of decisions to safeguard our financial system in the future.
And let's talk about
They cannot
AIG.
fail. If
No.
they fail, we will not get the market open. Okay.
Really, they need help. So is that the question, is if the government helps them or not helps them? Is that
Unfortunately, not the U.S. government that really needs to help AIG. It's Europe, because the problems of AIG are really much more Europe-central than American-central.
okay? So if they do not get help, what is the situation? What will happen?
Well, I mean, many of the banks that relied on AIG to be able to have AAA credit on portfolios will have their portfolios downgraded, which is why, like for instance, UBS goes down every day. Well, UBS is probably interrelated to AIG. AIG has such terrible disclosure, we have no idea who their customers are. So
because their products are insured by
AIG insured a huge amount of financial products in Europe when they felt that in 2005 that this market was going down. Marty Sullivan led a charge over there to insure mortgage-backed bonds the same way that MBI and AMBAC did. And they don't have the capital to make good on those.
What's being called a slap in the face for American taxpayers. Is it really possible that the insurance Goliath AIG may sue the U.S. government less than 5 years after taxpayers saved the insurance company from bankruptcy?
Economists put it today, if AIG sues the government now after that giant taxpayer bailout, it would be the equivalent of a patient suing their doctor for saving their life.
Insurance giant AIG bailed out by the American taxpayer just days ago, launching this brand new marketing campaign with 3 simple words.
Thank you, America.
Thank you, America.
Thank you, America.
But now, after thanking America, it turns out AIG might sue it. How do you say thank you, America, and then turn around and consider suing America?
Share prices continued to tumble.
Lehman Brothers was forced to declare itself bankrupt.
The largest single point drop.
The regulators, they had the power to do every case that I made when I was state attorney general. They just didn't want to.
Watching this tsunami coming.
They were having massive private gains at public loss.
The financial engineer built dreams. When those dreams turn out to be nightmares, other people pay for it.
Bear Stearns, Goldman Sachs, Lehman Brothers, they knew what was happening.
What do you think about selling securities which your own people think are crap? Does that bother you?
As a hypothetical?
No, this is real.
Of Wall Street incomes these days.
Excessive.
By 19.
Chuck Prince famously said, we have to dance until the music stops. Actually, the music had stopped already when he said that.
They're impulsive. I see a lot of cocaine use, prostitution.
So do these guys know that they were doing something dangerous?
I think they did.
I don't hear confessions.
What can we believe in? There's nothing we can trust anymore.
We had a whole group of people looking at this for whatever reason.
You can't be serious. If you would have looked, you would have found things.
The Wall Street government.
Why do you think there isn't a more systematic investigation being undertaken?
Because then you'll find the culprits.
I don't believe I have to discuss that with you.
We were a very dispirited, navel-gazing society that couldn't even get our own hostages back from Iran.
Actions of Iran have shocked the civilized world. Let's go! Shred everything! Our embassy has been seized and more than 60 American citizens continue to be held as hostages.
If we're going to go, then we need to go now.
What happened?
6 of the hostages went out a back exit.
Where are they? The Canadian ambassador's house.
You got Revolutionary Guards going door to door. These people die. They die badly. White House, who wants the 6 of them out?
What we like for this are bicycles
deliver the 6 bikes, provide them with maps.
Or you could just send in training wheels and meet them at the border with Gatorade.
It's going to take a miracle to get them out.
Ronald Reagan came in and with his kitchen cabinet from California, filled with certain ideas about supply side economics. And they tried, I believe in earnest, to restart the American miracle. And you had people like Paul Volcker, who wrung inflation out of the system by scaring the living crap out of us. And it played in, as a Jew, I'm going to say something a little bit edgy. There's a Christian meme called Daddy's Home. And, the idea is you're misbehaving now, but when your father gets home, order will be restored. And Ronald Reagan played right into the idea of Daddy's Home. And so Daddy came in and the red tape went away. We stopped enforcing antitrust. We started experimenting with all of these different things. In general, the idealism of every age is the cover story of its thefts. So for example, Manifest Destiny, you can figure out what the idealism of white man's burden is all about. You have land that isn't yours, and now you have an obligation to take it. In the 80s, our idealism was about competitiveness. And in part, that was about taking from organized labor in order to make sure that management had the ability to restart the engines of growth. And of course, what we found out was that all of these techniques didn't work the way I believe the earnest supply siders expected they would. And the baby boomers were watching, and in particular the Democrats had watched 12 years of Republican rule, and they were thinking that it was going to be a permanent Republican situation, permanent conservative leadership. And so Bill Clinton decided to create a second Republican Party. And the Democratic Party shifted away from labor after PATCO was destroyed and organized labor was attenuated. And so the idea is that idealism of competitiveness had now worked its way through. With the fall of the Berlin Wall in '89, we started a new idea, which is sort of the united colors of Benetton, we are the world, Davos idealism of globalization.
And the truth, love is all we need. We are the children. We are the ones who make a brighter day. So let's start giving.
And that effectively allowed us to break the bonds to our fellow countrymen and to attenuate the idea that a guy like me sitting in Los Angeles is bound to somebody in eastern Kentucky coming out of a coal mining background. If I can just free myself of my fellow countrymen, I'm free to move our factories to East Asia or to, in fact, import our scientific labor force from abroad in order to get effectively slave labor paid for by visas so that scientific employers don't actually have to pay our own people. So that's when we start pretending that Americans are bad at science and technology, when in fact I think we have the best educational system in the world, and we've got all sorts of incredibly creative people who are not preferred by our system because they're not obedient. So Americans aren't obedient. I'm not obedient. If you train me to get a PhD, you think I'm going to listen to you just because you tell me exactly what to do? I'm not your hired hand. I'm your colleague. I'm your fellow citizen. That period goes through, and effectively, the rich family starts a kleptocracy to pocket as much as you possibly can. This goes through up until the 2000s. We have the dot-com bubble. The dot-com bubble is replaced by a beautiful bubble about housing. Everyone deserves a house and the American dream. But of course, it's financed by nonsense. This is called the Great Moderation by the supposed grown-ups in the room, and you start to see the facts. You start to realize that Alan Greenspan goes from being an oracle to a guy who just doesn't even get the basics. So people like me, 2001, 2002, start talking about mortgage-backed securities. We're laughed out of the room repeatedly. And Nassim's point is that all of this is understandable, and that what we have is a world of financiers who, through financialization, have figured out how to get all of us, the citizenry, to act as the insurer, and they simply help themselves to the profit and stick us with the tail risk.
They own everything. They own all the important land. They own and control the corporations. They've long since bought and paid for the Senate, the Congress, the state houses, the city halls. They got the judges in their back pockets, and they own all the big media news, all the big media companies. So they control just about all of the news and information you get to hear. They got you by the balls.
All right, listen up. I'm Detective Gamble. This is Detective Hoyts. We need your cooperation. David Ershon.
You're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, and in connection to the murder of Don Beeman. Bob, what are you doing here?
I'm investing. Do you remember we talked about that proxy vote a while back? This is
Alan, we're the suckers. They're targeting the police pension fund.
Gentlemen, you're here illegally and without a warrant. We are within our rights to take action.
In 2006, I was looking at the mortgage system and saying to my friends who all were on Wall Street and all bankers, and I'm like, guys, this doesn't work. This is going to fall apart. This just doesn't work. And they talked to me about all their systems and all the fail safes they had and everything else, and it was all gobbledygook, and it failed. And it's astounding to me that we ended up paying for their mistakes, and so we never learn. They never learn from their mistakes because no one's ever responsible, except apparently the little guy.
Wait a second. They didn't make a mistake. Why are you saying they made a mistake? Let me explain this very clearly.
Okay.
They always knew.
My father was the head of education, PhD, all that stuff. I go home and ask him, said, why don't we learn about money in school? And he looked at me and says, because the government doesn't let us teach that subject. The government tells us what we can teach and what we can't teach. And I thought that was strange. And I said, but aren't we going to school to learn about money? He says, no, your job is to get a job. I said, but you get a job to earn money. He goes, no, you're supposed to just get a job. I went, no. Isn't the purpose of a job to earn money? He goes, you're correct. I said, so why don't I just learn about money? I can skip the job part, And he got flustered and he said, if you want to learn about money, why don't you ask your best friend's father about money? And I said, why? That's Mike. So why ask him? He says, because Mike's father is an entrepreneur. And I went, oh, what's the difference? He says, the difference is an entrepreneur must know about money. An employee doesn't have to know anything about money because the government will take care of him, the company will take care of him. But I took my dad's advice and I trundled over to Mike's father's office and knocked on his door and I said, hey, I'm here, 9 years old. Teach me about money. He says, beat it, kid, So how do I learn about money? So he would just break out a Monopoly game board. And he would teach me about money. But the way he taught me about money was playing Monopoly. And finally one day I got upset. I said, well, when are you going to teach me about money? He says, what do you think we're doing? We're playing Monopoly. He goes, no. What do you think we're doing? We're playing Monopoly. He says, what do you think we're doing? So I don't know. I'm teaching you about money. He says, one of the greatest ways to acquire great wealth is playing Monopoly in real life. 4 greenhouses, 1 red hotel. Well, is that all there is? He goes, that's it.
Do the rich people cringe and say, don't tell them that, Robert?
Yes. Don't tell people what you know. Right. Keep them poor.
This is the problem with this. The reason that I used to be invited to hedge funds conferences was because this is what I was saying. Of course, everyone knew this. People would say, well, I don't understand what you're not profiting from. I don't understand. Well, look, the party will go until it's over. The smart people in finance weren't convinced by the nonsense that they fed to the public.
Right.
So I don't think they made a mistake. We made the mistake. Who underwrites non-recourse loans? The public didn't even understand what a non-recourse loan was. So in essence, basically our financiers take advantage of our financial inadequacy to be attacked by the most sophisticated players in our society. We just sit down and we take it over and over again. I don't think they made a mistake. I think we made a mistake.
That's a pivotal moment in this country. Once you see something like that, you can't unsee it. Once someone pulls the mask from your face, he still remembers your face. People's attitudes about our economy will change forever because of what happened this week. It's a big deal. The Biden administration's response to what happened this week, their first impulse was to brag about having the first female Treasury Secretary. That's what they said. That's not an adequate response to what happened. And even the Biden people know that it's not. But that's all they had. The truth is, our leaders don't have answers. They don't even have explanations for what's going on. Worse than that, they themselves are deeply implicated in the systemic problems, in some cases the crimes that are dragging the country down. They know all this. They know their guilt. Here's the thing. They know that you know it too. And that's why they're afraid. They know why populism is rising, and it is. Populism starts when people start to figure that out, and they have. And that's why everything suddenly feels so unstable right now, because once again, real populism is brewing. They're refusing to admit their role in the decline. They're refusing to admit their failures, and instead, they are blaming the people they have failed. They're literally declaring war on their own population. And if you think we're overstating it, we're not. Here's the former CIA director describing what the enemy looks like.
And this threat from domestic violence extremists is much more challenging, I believe, than it was in terms of going after foreign terrorists. The domestic violence extremists are much more pervasive. Their numbers are much larger. When we were going after Al-Qaeda or other types of terrorist groups, cells here in the United States, their numbers were in the single digits of dozens, and was finding needles in a haystack. Here, there are a lot of haystacks with a lot of needles in them. They have the wherewithal. They already have the weapons that, if they so choose to use them, they can in fact carry out these deadly attacks.
But John Brennan, the former CIA director, has isolated the real problem. The real problem is you. According to Brennan, anyone who disagrees with, say, Susan Rice is worse than Osama bin Laden and more dangerous. These people, meaning you, quote, have the weapons. These terrorists. By terrorists, Brennan means tens of millions of American citizens who might have a firearm at home and didn't vote for Joe Biden. They're the threat, and we need to hunt them as we hunted Al-Qaeda. You just saw the clip. That's what he said.
And that is a bulletin released to all law enforcement earlier this week, that there is, until the end of April, a persistent domestic terrorism and around this belief that the election was fraudulent, that the COVID restrictions are unnecessary. All of those ideologies pushed by Donald Trump.
There's people who say there's no evidence, just are lying through their teeth, or they're deliberately ignorant or willfully blind to the truth.
At about 8 o'clock in the morning, we're going to roll this back and show it to you. There you go. So now they're going to start pulling these ballots out from under this table. This table, the black one, was placed there by the lady with the blonde braids at about 8:22 a.m. in the morning. So she put that table there. Yeah, I saw 4 suitcases come out from underneath the table. See the gentleman in the red. So he just pulled one out. So what are these ballots doing there, separate from all the other ballots? And why are they only counting them whenever the place is cleared out with no witnesses?
Is particularly this Dominion voting software. This was the software that was used in Michigan, and in Antrim County, they had Joe Biden up by thousands of votes. They claimed there was a software glitch. It was discovered, it was fixed, and then it turned out that President Trump was actually up by thousands of votes. We know that you and your team have been investigating this.
We have a person who's come forward with an affidavit inside of Dominion that has said that Dominion observed the 100,000 phony ballots that were brought in at 4 o'clock in the morning on November 5th that were all Biden ballots that appeared by every measure to be phony ballots since they were brought in the back door. They were not in the proper containers. They were sticking out of the paper bags and cardboard boxes. And they were told that these were ballots that were needed to catch up to Trump because Trump was too far ahead.
Momo and Kennedy, believe it or not, even had the same girlfriend together at the same time. Talk about crazy. So it was easy for the mob to help Joe Kennedy get his son elected president. That was easy. They just punched up the voter roll to make sure that he won in Illinois. In exchange for that, the new president was supposedly going to get Castro out of Cuba so our guys could get their casinos back and racetracks and shrimp boats and everything else that they had and owned down there from Havana back. But that didn't happen. They just wanted Kennedy, the Irishman, for president. And that's what they got.
Get used to it because we're going to be seeing it 24/7. Son of a bitch. Goddamn Kennedys. I'm looking at the goddamn Kennedys.
Jimmy, the kids' language.
What difference does it make? I mean, they got to learn sooner or later. We're going to war with these people.
So, just for starters, if you're on the left right now and you're watching or reading, newspapers or TV shows that are saying this is just insane, it's fucking nonsense. It's a lie. You're being absolutely lied to. The United States has a long, sordid history of voter fraud. This is not going away, everybody. It's not going away. Someone's going to have to explain what happened. There are 75 million people, somewhere around that are flipping out right now because they think their votes were stolen. They think the election was stolen. How is this going to actually come together and not end up in some type of civil war, whether it's a cold civil war, a hot civil war? Something is going to happen here, and it's not just going to go away. And for the mainstream media to do this, shame on you.
We had a policy, and it was attacking terrorism at its root, of going after and killing, and in the case of Anwar al-Awlaki, an American, a Yemeni American, with a drone strike for the crime of inciting violence, inciting terrorism.
Well, my friends, I think we got bigger things to worry about. Jack, what if I were to tell you that you're a big Trump supporter?
I was a Trump supporter, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. What if they drone strike you? From The Blaze, MSNBC host suggests killing American citizens with drone strikes. They view you as an evil other who must be caged or exterminated. This woman on MSNBC literally said, when we deal with terrorists overseas, we drone strike these people like American citizen Anwar al-Awlaki. And then they go on to talk about Americans. What do you think they're referring to?
As soon as he comes back from taking the last piss of his life, we smoke him. We are cleared hot. Light him up. Warheads on foreheads.
Laser on.
Painting the target.
Both Hellfires.
Master arm on. Weapons hot.
Rifle when ready.
3, 2, 1. Rifle. Missiles off the rail. Negative. Impact 3 seconds.
Run, you little shits. Get the fuck.
Master arm off. Weapons safe.
So what do you want to talk to me about?
The government's about to deport you for certain activities.
I'm in this country since I'm 2 months old. Does that make me Italian? I'm American. And they're trying to send me back?
I could have the deportation order reviewed. Have you classified as highly sensitive for national security? I could take the government off your back if you can help us.
Usually the guys that scare me. You're the people that make big wars.
No, we make sure the wars are small ones, Mr. Paul.
Let me ask you something. We Italians, we got our families and we got the church. The Irish, they have the homeland. The Jews, their tradition. Even the niggers, they got their music. What about you people, Mr. Carlson? What do you have?
The United States of America. The rest of you are just visiting.
But I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed, well-educated people capable of critical thinking. They're not interested in that. That doesn't help them. That's against their interest. They don't want people who are smart enough to sit around the kitchen table and figure out how badly they're getting fucked by a system that threw them overboard 30 fucking years ago. They don't want that. You know what they want? They want obedient workers. Obedient workers. People who are just smart enough to run the machines and do the paperwork and just dumb enough to passively accept all these increasingly shittier jobs with the lower pay, the longer hours, the reduced benefits, the end of overtime, and the vanishing pension that disappears the minute you go to collect it. And now they're coming for your Social Security money. They want your fucking retirement money. They want it back so they can give it to their criminal friends on Wall Street. And you know something? They'll get it. They'll get it all from you sooner or later because they own this fucking place. It's a big club, and you ain't in it.
We are anonymous. We are legion. United as one. Divided by zero. We do not forgive. We do not forget. Expect us.
No expression. Hide my head. I wanna drown my sorrow. No tomorrow, no tomorrow. And I find it kinda funny, I find it kinda sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I ever had. I find it hard to tell you, I find it hard to take. When people run in circles, it's a very, very mad world.